Okay, we're going to do a little video here on the Williams boards with the ribbon cables, have a little discussion on them, and kind of explain how I swap them out and different ways to do it. So what we're talking about on the, say the ROM board here, we have this ribbon cable. It's a 40-pin ribbon cable. And they refer to these connectors as IDC, insulation displacement connectors. So basically what you have here, you have a ribbon cable, comes in. Here's a spool, 100-foot spool. It's got a red stripe on one side, indicates where pin 1 is out of the 40. And cut to length. And then we've got some little end connectors here for the 40-pin standard header. And again, in this middle here, you put the cable through, it gets clamped, and it displaces the insulation around each wire and allows the metal contacts inside to pierce through that and then make electrical contact with the conductor in each wire. So, and we have a 3M press here, kind of hard to see, but this is used for crimping those cables. It's a special press. When you buy these off eBay for these boards, they tend to come with the IDC PCB side. It's the solder side. They come pre-assembled. The problem with this is, I believe when these boards were made, this side, when you solder these and heat these pins up, that heat gets transferred up through those little V grooves where the wire's in and causes it to soften the insulation, and over time you get a bad connection. So how these things, I believe, were manufactured is this gets soldered to the board first, then the cable on, and then this top cap is crimped in, which forces the ribbon cable into those insulation displacement connections, and then you end up with a cable. And one of the things that it makes me believe that is the way these cables are folded. It's much easier to come in here with a clamp and clamp here, even though this board, the cable is supposed to connect to the MPU 4 inches away. They did this on some board. It would have been easier to come off this way, straight off the board, and just connect, but then it's very difficult to get in here and clamp. So that makes me think that. So most people don't understand that this comes off, and I'll show you how to do that. So this cable, this connector also is, you know, $6 or $7 for this, for a good quality one. And then, but the problem is it also requires you to desolder the old one from the board. And these 40 different connections back here on some of these older PCBs, it's very easy to lift a trace or pad off, or when you resolder, to not get good flow, because a lot of the connections are on the top side of the board. This is a double layered board. So it's prone to cause some bigger problems. I mean, if you're having trouble with the ribbon cable and it's giving you a problem, that's pretty normal. These things fail internally and at those connection points. But buying these complete and soldering them on as one unit, even if this connector is bad, I would still solder the connector first and then apply the cable, and I'll show you how to do that. So, so again, here's some SG. These are ones I've removed. This is a Stargate. Here's a Robotron. You can see they're a little different lengths. Here's a Sinistar Speech. So I save a bunch of these as reference just for length and things like that. So when I make them up, I typically make them up. This is a 20-pin for the widget interface board, the I/O board. Always pay attention where pin 1 is with that red thing. I'm kind of OCD about that. I crimp this end, and then I leave this at length. So here's a Sinistar I/O board, interface widget board. And this has this blue connector, which is pretty common on the later boards. And these are actually really easy to get off. So I'll show you what I do to do that. So I have a little chip lifter here. You could just use a little flat blade screwdriver if you want. These are kind of, I prefer this because it kind of gives you a fulcrum point here where it's arced. So see if we can get a video of this. So I kind of come under, there's a little lip here. Come under here, pry up near the edge a little bit. That side came up. And now you can see here that there's 2 pins right here, and it's lifted. So I'm going to get under with one of these, lift that side. You don't want to do, you know, want to walk it up a little bit, each side a little bit. Pop that side, and there the cap comes right off. And now you can see the ribbon cable with the IDC pins in here. They're little V's that cut through the cable. So literally all you have to do is just pull off to one side like you're tearing tape off, and it's off. And now I always inspect these. You know, you're looking for any corrosion or anything. And if they're bad, I'll change the whole connector out. But typically I inspect them, look at them, everything looks great. Typically the fault is either in this end of the cable or somewhere in the middle, or over time just due to vibration and hot and cold, these things expand and contract. And the wire, you know, there's 40 really small conductors in there. I think they're 28 gauge, to be honest with you. If I look here, it might be on the box. Let me take a look. This is, let's see, I might be able to see it here. Conductor size, 28 AWG, stranded, 100 foot, 30.5 meters. So, anyway, these are the parts that go bad. And the connector is the expensive part that goes on the board, the solder part. And it's the one that is potentially going to cause you a lot of problems if you lift a trace or you have issues with it. So this is the way to go. So we pulled this off. I've got one made up here. I'll also show you here. Here's a bag that I keep of the new connectors for the ones that I do after play. Sometimes I buy these boards and they're, here's a new one, brand new. Get those off Mouse or DigiKey, something like that. They're, like I said, anyway, depending on quantities, anywhere from probably $4 to $7 a piece, something like that. So I guess if you buy in higher quantities, you can get it much cheaper. So again, these cables go on this way, which I've got a little pan of ice here with some nylon jaws. And again, I'm just going to crimp this in here. I'll show you. So basically what I do is take that cap you pulled off. I cleaned it up usually. And it does have a little lip on one side where the cable will fit flush into. So if you look from this back side, this cable will go back in here and hit flush. Can't push any further. So you kind of get it in there. Let me move this forward a little bit so you can see. And then put this over top. There's two little pins on each side here, so a total of 4. And you can kind of get those in there. Make sure the cable's fully inserted, which it is. And then I just press by hand. And usually you can either do by hand or get a little pair of even a little flat pliers. I've got some like this, just some flat jawed. They're non-knurled. Just give a little squeeze just to kind of hold it in place. So now it's sitting there in place. So all you have to do is just take a little pan of ice or any type of ice, and you put that in there. Make sure you're not gripping anything else. And tighten it up. And basically what that does is that cover on that connector forces that ribbon cable into that V-groove and pierces through the insulation and makes all, in this case, 20-pin connection. So tighten it up. Back it off. And you can see by the edge that it's fully seated. There's no air gap there on either side. And you've got a brand new ribbon cable and you had no soldering required. Piece of cake. Same applies for the 40 pin. And again, so that blue one's an easy connector to remove. These white ones, they're a little older. Sometimes I get these where the tabs are broken off the end. And again, you just have to change them. But if you're patient with these, basically there's a little groove, little slot here where they latch. And if you put a small screwdriver in here and kind of twist it, you'll see that pop out. You want to move that out just enough to clear those tabs. And sometimes I'll come in here where the ribbon cable is and get a smaller screwdriver, put a little bit of upward pressure on. You just have to be patient. This is pretty delicate. And if you, there, that side's up. And then come on this side. Oop, that one's up. And then there's like a secondary latch, because these ones are designed where they'll latch once, allows you to slide the cable in, and then you get the final click when you compress it and displace the insulation on it. So you can see there, that's about the gap they come with, and that keeps the top, everything aligned when they're manufacturing these. So, but I usually pop it all the way off. There's the cover off without damaging these tabs. These things are real easy to break on the white ones. And again, peel that cable up. And then there's the old cable, garbage. And then you'll grab a brand new one without this laid in there. Snap the cover on first, crimp it down in the vise. And if there's, usually what I do, if there's any excess that comes through, which is fine, if you want to make sure the cable's nice and square, running parallel with the edge of the board, I do that. And then basically just take an X-Acto if there's some excess when you're done, and just run it down the edge here, and take an X-Acto and just make it perfectly clean. The cable cut's really easy. So that's it. If you have any more questions, let me know. The ones that are a little trickier, like on the speech boards, I know there's some of the people have speech boards on the Sinistar or whatever, the pinballs even. This is one had a blue connector, one had a white. This cable actually comes out this way. They didn't do it backwards. And the area inside this jaw of the vise here, basically what I'll end up doing is take this cable and I'll roll it up like this because the connector's already on, and then put it in this way into the vise like this, and it'll fit in this opening. You'll have that rolled up in there. If you have a larger vise, that's fine. What I would do if you have a steel jaw vise is just put a piece of maybe 1/2-inch plywood in the back, because you don't really want to just on the one side where the 40 pin header is here, because the pins that are soldered expose through, and if it's on the steel, that's going to bend them and possibly cause a short if you fold one over. And it's fiberglass board is pretty soft, so just put a piece of wood or nylon or something on the back. Even some thick cardboard probably be fine to protect it. You don't need a ton of force to displace that insulation on the connector. So that's it. Good luck.